In Hamlet, William Shakespeare stages what is often treated as one of the most triumphant celebrations of humanity in English literature, only to quietly poison it from the inside. What a piece of work is a man! The line is quoted endlessly, framed in textbooks, shared as proof that Shakespeare believed in human dignity, human brilliance, human potential. It is routinely presented as Renaissance humanism at full bloom, confident, optimistic, almost reverent. But inside the play, the speech does not function as praise. It functions as an autopsy. Hamlet does not exalt humanity. He dissects it, methodically, eloquently, and without mercy. And the brilliance of the passage lies in its ability to sound like a hymn while operating like acid. Shakespeare builds the language of human greatness only so that it can collapse under its own weight. At first, the speech feels reassuringly familiar. Man is noble in reason, infinite in faculties, angel in apprehension, godlike in action. This is the vocabulary of Renaissance confidence, a worldview that places humanity near the center of the cosmos, elevated above animals by reason and lifted toward the divine by intellect. It is the belief that the human mind reflects order, that progress is natural, that meaning is available if we are rational enough to reach it. If the speech ended here, Hamlet would sound like a spokesman for his age's most cherished ideals. But Shakespeare does not let it end there. Instead, he detonates it. And yet, to me, what is this quintessence of dust? The reversal is abrupt, violent, and absolute. Everything that has just been elevated, reason, imagination, action, is dragged back into the grave. Humanity is not merely flawed or fallen. It is reduced to matter. The irony is brutal. The same voice that builds humanity up as nearly divine dismantles it as ultimately disposable. This is not a gentle correction. It is a collapse. And crucially, this collapse is not caused by ignorance or confusion. Hamlet knows the humanist story perfectly. He tells it fluently, elegantly, persuasively. His rejection of it does not come from misunderstanding, but from understanding too well. That distinction matters, because this speech is not a soliloquy. Hamlet is not alone. He is speaking to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, friends who have been sent to observe him, probe him, extract something useful from his mind. This is not confession. It is performance. The speech is polished, balanced, rhetorically symmetrical. It sounds like an exercise in philosophical oratory. Hamlet demonstrates that he can still reason, still synthesize ideas, still speak with intellectual authority. Whatever else may be broken in him, his mind remains intact. But that intactness is part of the problem. The eloquence functions as a mask. Hamlet performs belief in human greatness while quietly exposing that belief as hollow. He recites the creed of humanism the way one might recite a prayer they no longer believe, perfectly, precisely, and without comfort. The danger here is subtle. We are trained, especially as literary audiences, to treat eloquence as evidence of truth. But Shakespeare does something perverse. He gives Hamlet the most beautiful language precisely when the content has lost its power to console. Intelligence does not rescue meaning. It corrodes it. And that corrosion deepens when we pay attention to how the speech is structured. Hamlet begins in abstraction. Man is not a body but an idea, defined by reason, faculty, apprehension, action. These are intangible qualities. They belong to philosophy, not flesh. The human being appears almost weightless, composed entirely of mental and moral attributes. Then comes the turn. Quintessence of dust. Abstraction collapses into matter. the metaphysical is dragged into the physical, and the shift is not gradual, it is sudden. Shakespeare stages a collision between two incompatible visions of humanity, and he refuses to soften the impact. The word quintessence sharpens the blow. In Renaissance thought, the quintessence was the fifth and purest element, the refined substance beyond earth, air, fire, and water. It represented transcendence, perfection, and spiritual clarity. By pairing it with dust, Hamlet commits conceptual sabotage. Humanity is not merely dust. It is the essence of dust. The highest philosophical term in the vocabulary is fused to the lowest image of decay. Idealism is not corrected by realism. It is humiliated by it. This is not just emotional despair. It is linguistic violence. Hamlet turns the language of human greatness against itself. He uses its precision to expose its fragility. The speech becomes a demonstration of how easily exalted ideas can be dismantled once suffering enters the frame. And suffering has entered the frame. Hamlet's condition is not that he lacks belief. It is that belief no longer survives contact with reality. He has seen betrayal, corruption, moral rot. He has watched ideals fail to restrain violence or prevent injustice. And once ideals fail, something irreversible happens. They stop feeling eternal and start feeling optional. That is the real threat Shakespeare introduces here. Because if ideals are optional, intelligence becomes dangerous. Hamlet's mind does not protect him from despair. It amplifies it. He can see every argument from every angle, trace every belief back to its assumptions, dismantle every comforting illusion with surgical clarity. His intellect does not produce certainty. It produces paralysis. Irony becomes the mechanism by which thought devours faith. This is why the speech does not merely reject human greatness. It destabilizes the act of believing in greatness at all. Hamlet does not say, "Man is nothing." He says something more unsettling. Man may be everything we claim, and that still may not be enough. The implications ripple outward. Hamlet admits that man does not delight him, nor woman either. This is not casual misogyny or flirtatious melancholy. It is a rejection of pleasure itself. Sensory experience, aesthetic joy, even human connection, all have lost their persuasive power. And yet, almost immediately after this speech, Hamlet turns to theater. He stages a play. He manipulates illusion. He weaponizes art. The irony is sharp enough to cut. The man who claims that nothing gives him pleasure will soon rely on performance to pursue truth. Art does not comfort him, but it still works. Illusion, it turns out, can still expose reality even when reality feels empty. This suggests something deeply uncomfortable. Perhaps Hamlet does not reject meaning entirely. Perhaps he rejects only naive meaning. Pleasure, belief, and idealism are not abandoned, but they are no longer innocent. They must now justify themselves under pressure. And this raises a more dangerous question, one Shakespeare never answers for us. Is Hamlet's irony wisdom, or is it addiction? Is this speech an act of clarity, or a performance of superiority over belief itself? Because there is a seductive pleasure in negation. There is a power in being the one who sees through illusions. Hamlet may be exposing the weakness of humanist ideals, but he may also be indulging in the authority that comes from dismantling them. And we, the audience, are not innocent here. We admire the speech. We quote it. We feel clever recognizing its irony. We congratulate ourselves for not being fooled by its surface optimism. But in doing so, we may be reenacting the very dynamic the play warns against. We take pleasure in collapse. Shakespeare implicates us by making the language beautiful even as its content disintegrates. We are invited to enjoy the elegance of despair, to feel sophisticated for agreeing that meaning is fragile, to mistake recognition for resolution. That is the final trap. Because the speech does not end humanism. It reveals its vulnerability. And vulnerability does not equal falsehood. It means that ideals demand something from us. They require maintenance, commitment, faith that survives disappointment. Hamlet cannot or will not provide that faith. Once questioned, the value of humanity does not easily return. And that may be the real tragedy. Not that humanity lacks greatness, but that greatness, once subjected to relentless scrutiny, no longer knows how to defend itself. What a piece of work is a man endures, not because it praises humanity, and not because it condemns it, but because it refuses to let us rest in either position. It holds magnificence and emptiness in the same frame and denies us the comfort of choosing. Reason is extraordinary and insufficient. Intelligence is powerful and corrosive. Humanity may be godlike and still incapable of saving itself from despair. By the end of the speech, nothing has been disproven. Something far worse has happened. Belief has been destabilized. And once that happens, every ideal becomes provisional. Every meaning becomes negotiable. Every certainty carries a quiet expiration date. Shakespeare does not tell us whether this is honesty or illness. He leaves us with the unease of recognizing ourselves in Hamlet's voice. Brilliant, articulate, unconvinced. The chill comes from the possibility that the speech is not about the failure of human greatness at all. It is about what happens after we learn to see through it, and whether once we do, we ever truly learn how to believe again. So what do you think? When Hamlet calls humanity the quintessence of dust, is he exposing a truth Shakespeare believes, or a mindset Shakespeare wants us to fear?